Nations. On a fine note this morning, we'll turn our attention to a recent partnership that would see Nigeria enter the Brics community of nations. Joining us on the program this morning, who is in our studio to discuss this, is Professor Okey Ikechukwu, MNI. He is a professor of strategic management and human capital development, also professor of social and management sciences, and the executive director, Development X Academy. Prof, good morning to you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. It's wonderful to have you here in the studio. Now, what does this entail, in your opinion, for Nigeria entering into the BRICS community of nations? It has been met with a lot of debate, some optimistic about it, while others are pessimistic about the fact that Nigeria is entering into an organization that has Russia spearheading it.
Well, the question is, what do the BRICS nations represent? The platform has a primarily economic focus. The political angle is a secondary element. The fact that it's being spearheaded by or headed by Russia translates into nothing one way or another. The global environment is now different from what it was. The global war, the Cold War is over. We no longer have what you might call a bipolar world. It's a mix. It's a VUCA world. So some of the concerns I've read about on the papers are dated. By that I mean they're the type of concerns I wouldn't have been surprised seeing in the 90s and early 200s, even up to probably 5-10 years ago. But in today's world, none of those major powers is such a strong player that he can be a primary determinant. Also, with Trump as president right now, quite frankly, everything on this planet has become unpredictable.
Well, it appears so. It appears so. But in terms of opportunities for the country Nigeria, what should we be expecting in terms of trade, investment, agriculture, and especially at a time when we are grappling with food insecurity in the country?
There are 3 or 4 concerns as far as I'm concerned. In terms of trade, up till this moment, we are largely monocultural. That was what put out in the international market is mostly our petroleum products. Of course, all the others are picking up gradually. But the concern to note, if you're thinking of, for instance, increase in agricultural trade, 3 questions. In the last 6 years, what has been the percentage of food output? There's been a very conspicuous decline. So that there's hunger today, that there's inflation, and all sorts of things, it's not because of any other factor than the fact that for the last 3, 4 to 6 years, agricultural output has been suffering because insurgency has been interfering with agriculture. Both plants and both, animal husbandry. Rustling is going on. Farmers are losing their places. Sections of the nation that used to produce a lot of grains, many of the people there in refugee camps are not in their farms. Look at the northeast. A lot of grain, a lot of material used to come in from there. Now, when you have up to 2 million, 3 million people, or let's even just assume 500,000 people in refugee camp, what is happening is that sections of the Federal Republic of Nigeria that used to provide food have become consumption points. Assuming 3 of us are farmers who used to send food to Wuse Market to be sold. Now somebody comes, demolishes our farms, drives us out. We're now spotting somewhere, somebody is feeding us. We're no longer contributing to food in Wuse Market. We're now totally dependent. People and government and friends are spending on us. That's the issue on the table.
Taking and not given.
Yeah, so whereas we can express optimism, first let's acknowledge that it is good to join such a platform. You get into the place, you find what is there, you find what role you can play. That is one thing on the table. In joining it also, to determine that role, you adopt a purely pragmatic and realistic perspective. Namely, you're saying this is an open market. Do I have anything to bring into the market? If I don't have anything to bring into the market like the others, and allow them access to my own market, what's likely to happen to me? What's likely to happen is that my products may not match their own products. So I give them a market, lose my productive base, have nothing to offer, and it becomes a loss all around. But my take is that Nigerian leadership, Nigeria generally has enough sophistication, particularly at this time that a lot of stakeholders are in the public domain, not to go into any arrangement that will not ultimately be in its interest.
Now, Prof, talking about this arrangements and joining platforms, a lot of Nigerians have asked the question as to why Nigeria is always from the attendee side of the table when it comes to discussing world economics. I was listening to an interesting comment made by the ex-Interior Minister, Professor Bola Akiyemi, who says that it is more like a slap on Nigeria to be designated partner other than being a member of BRICS outrightly. And he was citing our big brother status in Africa. If South Africa is designated member of BRICS, and we're talking about Nigeria as a leading world economy from the African perspective, do you think that it would have been better placed to make Nigeria a member other than designating us a partner in BRICS?
You see, we must make a distinction between emotional concern about who we think we are
and who we actually are.
If three of us have an organization and another person wants to join us, we give him conditions, true or false.
Certainly.
So there must be criteria for membership. I will understand that KMA to be making a point if he has confirmed that Nigeria made a criteria for membership, that this is a criteria for membership, this is a criteria for partnership of partner, and that we met this, but they gave us partner. That argument
that would have been a different argument entirely.
Totally different argument. So there are some emotional. Oh, we are big. Okay, let's look at the big brother status. What makes Nigeria a big brother? Nigeria is a big spender, nothing more. Has been for years. Nigeria funds the Organization of Africa, the African Union, OAU, and then later AU. Nigeria funds ECOWAS. The Secretariat is here. Go and check whether Nigeria spends or provides less than 60 to 80% of the funding that keeps all these agencies going. Over the last 30 years, even for OAU meetings, you may not be aware, but there are nations. Nigeria will send the plane that will bring their president to the meeting. At least I know when Ambassador Hamza Ahmadu, the Wali of Sokoto, was Nigeria's High Commissioner in the U.S. He's an experienced diplomat. For him, on one occasion in those days, because he was with us on the Guardian editorial board, I'm feeling really bad that, look, you go and carry somebody who couldn't get to travel to Ethiopia for the meeting, and even on the plane you provided, he's complaining, why is Nigeria, President, why is Nigeria wanting this and that, and they'll go there to vote against you. Now, what point am I leading up to? You must make a distinction between a giant and a Mongol. A giant is physically big, his faculties are intact, he can act rationally, he decides what to do. A Mongol is of the same size, but bumbles about because he has the brain of probably a 2-year-old. What has been Nigeria's strategic interest? You knew when Nigeria gave us it, I think Ghana, $10 million, I think some years ago. We've been doing all of this. So when Professor Kiyemi is speaking of big brother, an unintelligent uncle who gives out his wealth to the extended family is not a big brother. He's a foolish elder. That's what we should begin to ask ourselves. Okay, let's suppose we are given the status of member.
Yeah.
So what? What's the configuration of the Nigerian economy when you compare it to that of South Africa? Remember in 1976, I think it was the same Akiyemi who proposed the concept of medium powers. You know, you have the superpowers and all. Now let's have a concept of nations that have some influence where they are. For instance, Nigeria is a regional power and all of that. So he's a man who's been on international affairs. He's a superbly patriotic Nigerian. Remember, he also was largely responsible for the Murtala speech in 1976. Nigeria has come of age and all of that. But in today's world, it's not sufficient to talk about the size of your country. Yes, Nigeria is big. What percentage of that population is in good health? What percentage of that population is not poor? What percentage of that population is not under Boko Haram? What percentage of the political leadership is not under pressure from agencies investigating corruption? So let's not have an imaginary, what do you call it, structural notion of, a whole Nigeria. No. How do we stand? Why is it that in one country wanted to set up something and went to do it in Kenya and all of that? Why was it that Obama was looking for who to visit in Africa? He went to all the places or didn't come here. That kind of realism is important. So let's not begin to complain. How can you imagine the government accepted to make us a partner? Before the government, did anybody make you even a spectator? No. These are gains. Even if there are challenges, make suggestions to the government on how to remedy the challenges. Not come and make public speeches. And you now get fellow activists. Nigeria is beyond all of this. Who told you that?
Now, Prof, let's take the issue of ECOWAS and connect it to BRICS. Now, in ECOWAS, there has been a little bit of talk about having a single currency amongst ECOWAS states. This has been on the ground for quite some time.
For and now 25 years.
Exactly. And now in BRICS, there are still talks about having a single currency that all BRICS nations would use. We are not certain where that conversation is being driven at the moment. However, you cited that Trump's, emergence or re-emergence. Exactly. Trump is here, and Trump is already threatening sanctions on BRIC nations or a 100% tariff, if they replace the US dollar with the new BRICS currency, whatever it might be.
The units. They're proposing the name, the units.
Exactly. What dilemma is Nigeria really going to fall into, especially with the ECOWAS on one hand and BRICS on the other hand, and Trump with the gun and the barrel pointed at Nigeria?
And probably a catapult as well.
Exactly.
All you know.
well, let us in, Prof.
As far as I'm concerned, there's no dilemma, anything to be worried about. When you speak of a currency that spreads across several nations, you're already talking about something you're going to take between 15, 20 years to put together. And in the end, you may not even succeed. Today in West Africa, do we have a common currency? Do we? And we have been on it for at least 30 years, for as far back as I can remember. So there will be meetings, there will be agreements, there will be protocols. This is international politics. How long did it take Europe to get the euro? How many years? They finally got it. Today, is it the same for everybody? No. So when you talk about the BRICS nations having a common currency, at the level of theory and possibility, it makes sense. Oh no, if you have it, you can replace the US dollar. You can make all that speech as a nation. But America can also approach you as an individual nation and advise you to be of good behavior. And the basis for that is simple. See the kind of relationship we have. We know you've been attending all these meetings. You're talking about currency. When you attend a meeting, for instance, you can express support. That is different from investing in. You can say, okay, I express support for the economic initiatives of Dangote Cement. This man says, I invest in Dangote Cement. So if you have 2,000 people expressing support and 3 people investing, that company is not getting money. A good deal of the time, that's how international politics is played. A coup occurs here. The international community knew about the coup. They felt the government should go. And they've agreed, okay, if it's announced, we'll condemn it. The other say we'll express concern. The other say we'll call for a quick return to democracy. These are these are dimensions of negotiated mischief in international
diplomatic
politics.
Talks.
Yes. So, yeah, Trump's threat is there, but he may have nothing to act on. Picture the BRICS nations. How many are there? They will now meet and agree on a common currency, bring some congruence in their central banking system and all of that. You're talking about something that probably, if it's going to happen at all, will probably take another 10 to 30 years, but I don't see it happening for a simple reason. International trade and international businesses are running on platforms that are no longer the things that used to get money. The service economy, the digital economy, the virtual economy, most of it is actually outside government management and administration. So international trade is more personalized, if you like, than nationalized. So to that extent, all those, they are talk in the papers. When you understand the pragmatic realism of international politics and the diplomacy that goes with it, you know that the first, going back to the point, let Nigeria be in whatever platform you're talking about. Let's be seen, let our voice be heard. That is important. Those who say, oh, we should have been full member rather than partner, give us the reasons why you think so. So shows that we are qualified and they are not giving it to us, then we'll all join you to call for it.
Now, Prof, talking about looking at Nigeria through the prism of realism, let's talk about some worrying statistics and some approaches the government is taking to shore up financial confidence in the country. Now, we're told from statistics obtained from the CBN website that our FX reserves have depleted just in the first 2 weeks of this year, from January 6th to 21st, by $832.2 million. Last year, we saw some theatrical displays where the Minister of Solid Minerals, Dr. Dele Alake, presented gold bars to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, talking about it being
The minutes of storing.
yes, shoring up our reserves. What's happening to our FX? I'll come back to the point my colleague also made in my second question, which is the units which Brics is proposing is supposed to be gold backed. And they're saying it would also remove most nations like Nigeria from dollarizing our economy, which some persons see reasons with. But if our FX is depleting, as we've seen now, and the gold bars presented are just for presentation, we don't know the actual value or what it does to the FX. What's the realism in where Nigeria is financially?
No, beginning with what was the first point you mentioned?
The depleting reserves, our FX depleting.
You see, we react with a sense of panic, usually without getting enough information. Assuming your salary is 3 million per month, and I discover you spent 1.8 million in 72 hours, and I shout, look, this guy is, can you imagine he just spent this amount in 2 days? For me to cry out, I have to find out what you spent on, find out that you shouldn't have spent on it, and then I become concerned.
Yes.
The very fact of depletion of reserves is not an indication of national crisis. You see, this level of rational, objective, meaningful thinking and talking must become how we speak in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Oh, the government has depleted it by 800 and something million dollars. Can you imagine? And somebody continues from there. Unfinished statement. The government spent 800 and something million dollars on ABCD. And you find out that the government, what government spent on is yielding something in 6 weeks or in 9 months or whatever.
More like an investment.
More like an investment.
So the details are not there. Now, if the details are not provided by the Federal Central Bank, the Federal Central Bank is not doing us a favor. It means that the Central Bank is partly responsible for the mischief, because by giving incomplete information, you provide room for speculation.
And ignorant hysteria.
That's the word. Instead of working with a sense of history, you work with hysteria. Now, the point I'm making is not, I'm not justifying that, oh, they should have spent or they shouldn't, but we must begin to deplete the population of activists
And be
by
rational in our
ensuring that
conversation.
only those who talk rationally are actually considered to be genuine patriotic activists.
Now, Prof, just to chip in where the speculation is stemming from, if you would recall, PJ Morgan made a publication and he outrightly called Nigeria broke. And he provided data to show our depletion of our FX reserve over time and was charging or daring the CBN to publish our actual reserves. That's where that speculation is coming from, and why some Nigerians would jump on the bandwagon of saying, what is this money being spent on?
You see, I'm glad you mentioned Morgan. And you know there's Transparency International. Where do people keep stolen money in the world? If you have a Swiss account, you're good. Go and check that country's rating on Transparency International and check that of Nigeria. You see, we adopt platforms that are totally, in my view, quite frankly, possibly mistaken, should not be taken too seriously. JP Morgan is reputable. The whole world respects it. Go and check JP Morgan's records on all the companies that crashed, I think, in 1989.
89, yes.
Whether JP Morgan was up to speed on what was going on in the global economy. What is the basis for some of the submissions they made? I'm not questioning their reputation, but I'm telling you that it's come to the point where, as a nation, as leaders, we retire some of these organizations by querying, thoroughly examining their claims and taking counter positions formally and officially. Now, JP Morgan declared the country broke. Therefore, we should start trembling. The companies JP Morgan said were doing very well and which collapsed within a couple of weeks of that declaration, why is nobody talking about it? Where was JP Morgan, Southern Poor's, all these agencies, organizations? They're all international platforms. None of them saw that meltdown coming. Global economic meltdown. Crashed everything that could be crashed. None of them had a point of view on it. Nobody queried them for it. It's to wake up one day, okay, I think it was JP Morgan too, sometime, I think that was Jonathan's time. We had a very terrible rating. Then a few weeks later, before 2 months, I think, yeah, in less than a month, actually, we had the rating reversed after a conversation. We're not children. It's about time nations grew up, particularly in Africa. It's about time leaders grew up. Now, let's suppose it's true. JP Morgan has said that, look, Nigeria is broke. Then what? They are sitting in the office, we are here. And then people say, oh, have you heard that, JP Morgan has said that Nigeria is broke? Can you imagine the person talking, what's his level of knowledge exposure? What's the level of understanding of international politics? What's his level of understanding of development economics? That is where national conversation, and I take us back to Professor Kiyemi, distinguished scholar and elder statesman. His reaction, does it provide a basis for panic? He has panicked. Should we panic? What level of extra information did he bring to bear on the observation he made? Imagine that Akiyemi came out and said, yes, I've noticed Nigeria is made a partner instead of a member. These are the criteria for membership. These are criteria for partnership. This nation, this is own rating. This is ours. I think this is unfair. Or rather than even coming to the public, get in touch with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, request for a meeting with the President. Your Excellency, this cannot fly. That's how it works. But you come, you say it is wrong, and you go in, no solution has come with it. Which is not to say that people shouldn't speak. It's just that you know the extent of
the rhetorics will make an impact on citizens.
that is it.
Now, we have like 5 minutes. This will be my final question. Yes.
What happens to your... Anyway.
Time flies when we're having very solid conversations like we're doing. Now, it's on our solid minerals sector. The license has been issued, bringing us back to the gold bars that were presented to
Okay,
Mr.
yeah, you
President.
mentioned gold bars.
Yes. So what does this do for the ministry? Because we continue to face illegal mining, and up until now, Nigeria cannot be said to account for our gold reserves or our gold deposits, and which is the future projections of where currency is going to.
I find it curious you mentioned, because I think 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, I actually wrote an article on the back of this. The title is Alake, that's the minister, and matters arising in the mining sector.
Would you be kind to share with us as well?
Oh, certainly. It's online even. It was on the back of this day 3 or 4 Saturdays ago. Now, first on the international front, the use of the American dollar as means of international exchange is not right. I think it came into being in the 70s. It was arbitrary. You can't use another country's currency as reserve. So America has used it and been riding roughshod over everybody. Gold mining is going on. It was only, I think, about a month ago that the government lifted the ban that was imposed in 2019. Under Alake, they released it. But it was under Buhari that that ban was imposed. While the ban was on, illegal mining was going on. Even though the presidency had an arrangement back then to integrate some of them, my position is a different one. Now, the whole idea is that gold, your gold stock becomes the basis for declaring your wealth value. And that ceremony in itself, I didn't understand it that Alake was handing over reserves to Nigeria. But the important point to note is that we are not getting most of our gold. Bukuyum is a town, is a local government in Zamfara. I've been there. That's why it has a lot of more gold probably than Nasarawa.
Gold deposits.
Deposits, and it's going on. Go and see the amount of poverty there. But coming around to the substantive issue on the table, if the US dollar is moved from its current position on international trade, there will be greater global equity. Mali has a lot of gold. Mali was a colony of France. Now France has 9 times more gold than Mali from where it's coming from. All of that will be reversed. But 3 things. Reduction in foreign reserves in itself does not spell calamity unless you confirm that the use is not driving economic growth. Secondly, the move against the US dollar is likely to gain momentum.
Yeah.
We'll see how the world reacts to it with a Trump on the seat. Thirdly, I think there has to be some greater visibility of quantum of physical gold deposit in Nigeria, since the demonstration has already been made by the minister that, look, we have this. Periodically, give us also update. We had so and so tons of gold, now it is this. We have this amount of dollars, now it's this. Balancing all of that will create greater reassurance.
Well, Prof, in just 30 seconds before we let you go, or less, are there specific hurdles you think Nigeria might face with these new developments joining Brics as a partner nation?
Very possible there might be criteria for, I think, when Obasanjo set up EFCC, it was in order to meet certain international requirements before the debt relief.
Yeah.
So as Nigeria joins now, they will give conditions. If those conditions are not yet met, Nigeria will work towards it. Now, it's possible for somebody to jump out and say, oh, we haven't met this condition, which is our expertise to show what is wrong with us. There might be details, and that detail should be worked out between the Foreign Affairs Ministry, probably the Diaspora Ministry, alongside the presidency and all of that. This is national development. If we find out it's no longer in our interest, we can always pull out. But we can't just be grumbling every time
opportunities like this.
Like this arise.
All right, Professor Okey Ikechukwu, Amos, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to have you in the studio. But hopefully next time we'll have one whole hour of discussion on the show.
It had better be. I don't know what happens to clocks when I enter a studio. I'll probably carry a placard on that.